Hello dear students, how are you all doing? I hope you all are great. Okay, so today we are going to continue the life processes. Okay, this is the part 2 part, and here we are going to see about the respiration in humans. Okay, so you must, before you go into the topic, first you must understand what is respiration is. So here goes the definition. Okay, so the respiration is nothing but the biological reaction. Okay, so where does this biological reaction takes place? Okay, this biological reaction probably takes place within the cells of all the living organisms. Okay, it takes place within the cell of all the living organisms. Okay, so once this reaction takes place, what happens? The next one will be the energy. Okay, the energy is created. Now what is energy is? Energy is in the form of ATP. Okay, so last class itself I told you what is ATP is. ATP is nothing but adenine triphosphate molecules. So this energy is created during the breakdown process, okay, of what? Of the glucose, the amino acids and all that. Okay, once the breakdown process undergoes the breakdown process, then this cells utilize this the cells utilize it and execute for various metabolitic activity, and that is called as respiration. So respiration is nothing but the biological reaction which takes place within the cells of the living organisms. So the energy which is rich in ATP here is created during this breakdown process of glucose, where these cells utilize it or they execute it for various metabolitic property, and that is called as respiration. Okay, so before we get into the topic, first you must know the associated organs of respiration. Okay, what are the organs which is associated during this process? So as the picture slide is seen here, the first one will be our nostrils, right? The air enters through the nostrils. Okay, the second one, the next one will be the cavity, the entire cavity, the nasal cavity, the tube-like structure will be the nasal cavity. The next one will be the pharynx. The pharynx, I can tell you in other ways, it is a common passage, okay, for both the food and water to get inside. So this pharynx is very, very important, the part of digestion. Okay, but this is also an associated part, it will be along with that. Okay, the larynx. The larynx is otherwise called as the voice box. The voice is produced, okay, different types of modes of the shrill sounds, all the sounds are produced through this larynx. Of course, the trachea is otherwise called as the windpipe. You can see in the diagram itself. It is a common passage for the air to enter. Only the air can enter. So supposing if the food particles enters in the trachea, that's all, the person will die. Okay, so trachea is otherwise called as the windpipe. Okay, and again bronchi and bronchioles. So the lungs, of course, the lungs is the primary organ or the necessary important organ of respiration, and the diaphragm. So diaphragm is nothing but it is a C shape. You can see in the last curve is, you can note, like, right? So that is a C-shaped diaphragm. Especially this diaphragm plays a very important role during the process of intake of the air and the and letting out of the air out. Okay, so when we go into that topic, maybe you will know what is this diaphragm's function is. So this is about the respiration in human. Okay, the next one. Now we have to analyze, or we have to know how the respiration takes place. Okay, how the respiration takes place. Of course, the air enters to the nostrils. All of you know, right? So the air enters to the nostrils. So once the air enters to the nostrils, the air consists of many dust particles, many microorganisms. Okay, so the mucosa, the air and the mucus which is inside the nostrils will trap all the impurities or the dust particles which enters through the nostrils. So after this, the air passes to the pharynx. Okay, it enters to the pharynx and later into the larynx. After the larynx, it will reach the trachea, and finally the bronchi, and finally it will enter it empties itself in the lungs. Okay, so when you talk about the trachea, what is this trachea? I already told you this trachea is a it's a windpipe. I already told you, right? Now this trachea consists of lot of cartilaginous substances, the bone-like structures, right? The cartilaginous substances, or it is in form of a ring. You can see it in the figure itself, the trachea, and I have given here, you can see the picture itself, and there are many ring-like structures. Okay, so this prevents what? The collapsing. That is, when there is no air in the trachea, it prevents the collapsing. And finally, the bronchi. The bronchi is again divided into bronchioles. And each bronchioles, what happens here is, it has many small sac or a small tiny sac. That tiny sac is nothing but the alveoli. Okay, this alveoli helps in the exchange of gases. That is, the CO2 which is produced in our body should go out, and the oxygen which is produced from the environment should enter inside. Okay, CO2 is not required for human beings, okay, but it is produced in the tissues, but it has to go out, and the oxygen should be entered. For this diffusion, this exchange of gases is taken place only with the help of the alveoli. Okay, so, and also the surface area of the lungs, it increases with the help of the alveoli. So this is the anatomy, the main function of how the respiration takes place. Okay, so the next one will be the breathing, mechanism of breathing. How do you breathe? Okay, so when you talk about the breathing can be divided under two heads. What are those two heads? Inspiration and expiration. So what is inspiration is? Taking in of oxygen. Okay, taking in of oxygen is called as the inspiration. And what happens here? You can see the picture itself. In breathing in, the inspiration is otherwise called as breathing in. You're taking in oxygen. What happens then? The chest will expand. The chest will expand. I already told you in the earlier slides, diaphragm plays a very important role in the mechanism of breathing. I told you, right? In this inspiration, what happens? This diaphragm becomes flat. Okay, so the chest expands and the ribs are pulled upwards and downwards. You can just, for a minute, you can just examine by taking in of, just like this, just take in. So what happens exactly? Your ribs is taken upwards and downwards, right? So as a result, your diaphragm, your C-shaped diaphragm will be flat. Okay, so after which what happens? When the diaphragm becomes flat, it leads to the increase of the volume of the lungs. It increases the volume of the lungs. So this is the inspiration. So inspiration is nothing but taking in of the oxygen. Okay, as a result, the chest will expand and the ribs are pulled upwards and downwards. The diaphragm becomes flat. Okay, once if it is flat, it leads to the increase of the volume of the lungs. This is the inspiration process. Okay, so the next process, you can see the next image over there. That's nothing but breathing out. You're taking something out. You're expelling something out. Okay, that is called as breathing out. So what is this expiration? Expiration is nothing but sending the CO2 outside. Okay, the expiration otherwise it can be said as exhalation, sending something outside. Okay, thus that is called as that process. Sending the CO2 which is produced from the tissue out of your body is called as exhalation or expiration. What is expire? What is expire? Expire is something, they go out of the world, right? They die, they are no more. Likewise, this process will make the CO2 to go outside the body. The CO2 will no more be inside. It will take out. Okay, so that process is called as the expiration process. Okay, so okay, the next slide, we are going into the circulatory system. When you talk about the circulatory system comprises of the three. The first one will be the arteries, the veins and the capillaries. Okay, I repeat, the arteries, the veins and the capillaries. Now what are these arteries are? The arteries are nothing but they are also the tubules that which carries the blood away from the heart. It carries the blood that is away from the heart. And what happens to the veins? If you take about the veins, what are these veins are? These veins carry the blood towards the heart. Okay, so the veins carries the blood towards the heart. This veins, what happens, they are also small tubules, like, okay, that they return the blood to the heart, but in other ways I say they carry the blood towards the heart. What are these capillaries are? Now these capillaries, nothing but they connect both this vein and the arteries. And of course, when you talk about the capillaries are also the tiny tubules. Okay, it helps in the exchange of the food, it helps the exchange of the waste, the oxygen between the two. One will be the body cells, another one will be the blood. So that is the main function of the arteries. And when you talk about the arteries are very, very delicate. Since it is tiny tubules, they are very, very delicate. They have a delicate blood vessels, or I can tell you another word, they have the smallest blood vessels. So blood, when I was mentioning in the slide, you can see food. Don't think food is nothing but the complex substance. No, it is, the food will be in the form of micronutrients. That I want to make sure here. Okay, and the slide you have seen the exchange of food, oxygen and waste. I've just quoted here. But food is not in the form of complex substance, but in the form of micronutrients, where the cell absorbs this micronutrients. Okay, so the blood, the micronutrients and oxygen, okay, where it takes to the cells for the processes. So this is about the circulatory system. The next one will be the next transport, the transport system in the human beings. The main transport system in the human beings will be the circulatory system. It's nothing but the circulatory system. So when you talk about the circulatory system comprises of the blood. It comprises about the arteries, it comprises about the veins, it comprises about the capillaries, and finally the heart. Okay, so long I was explaining about what is an artery is, what is a vein is, what is a capillaries are. But now let's go into the next important transport system, which is the blood. Okay, so blood is one of the, it is very, very important. Without the blood, oxygen will not be there. Okay, so when you talk about the blood, the main function of the blood is that it helps in transporting the oxygen, the micronutrients and also the waste products. Okay, so when you talk about the blood has many integral parts. Okay, one such thing will be the plasma, the blood plasma. The red blood cells. The red blood cells are what? They consist of the respiratory pigments called the heme cells, the hemoglobin. Only because of the red pigments we are able to analyze and say that it is a red blood cells, because of the pigment. Next one will be the WB cells. When you talk about the WBCs, it will fight against the invading any pathogen for that matter. It will give the immunity for your body, right? So that is the WBCs and the platelets. Okay, and the transport of carbon dioxide, the nitrogenous waste, is also done by the blood. Of course, the RBCs, the red blood cells, what do? They transport the oxygen. So as I told you, the WBCs, the main function of the WBCs is to kill the foreign pathogen or a microbe when it enters inside your body. The first thing is that it will fight against the foreign means the unknown organisms or the unknown microbe. You might yourself will not analyze, but your your blood will analyze, especially your WBCs. They are very intelligent. Even if it is microorganisms, it can clearly detect what type of a microbe it is, and it will, the first thing is it will kill the microorganisms. For that, your WBC count should be good. Make sure that you eat a very good healthy food to maintain the blood constituent correctly. The next one will be the platelets. When you talk about the platelets, it helps in the clotting of the blood. Okay, and also it prevents the loss of the blood during the injury, because since it helps in the clotting of the blood. Okay, not lot of blood is come out unless and until if a person is experiencing a very bad injury. So if you cut your hand maybe in a small lancet or maybe in a small blade, immediately after some time you find the blood stops. That is because of your platelets. They're very intelligent. They helps in the clotting of your blood and prevents the loss of blood from, especially during a small hurt or injury. Of course, it is when it is a big injury, then it is something different. Okay, so this is about the main transport system in the human beings. The next one, let's talk about the artery. As the picture says, you can see the picture, the artery, the veins, the capillaries. The arteries are in red color, the veins in the picture, the veins are in blue, and finally the arteries and the veins, I already told you in the earlier slides, these two are united by the capillaries. I told you the capillaries are nothing but the tiny tubules, right? It is the the smallest blood vessel in your body, right? So when you talk about the arteries, they carry the oxygenated blood, or in other terms I can tell you, the pure blood. From where it carries from the heart and supplies to the rest of the parts of your body. So that is the main function of an artery. So when you talk about the artery, they are thick-walled, okay, and they do not have valves. They do not have ducts or valves in it. Next one will be the veins. The veins carries the deoxygenated blood. In other words, the impure blood is carried. Okay, so where does it carry? The impure blood is the blood from the other parts of the body to the heart, because since the vein carries the impure blood, okay, it will enter from the superior vena cava. Maybe when I explain the heart, I will explain how it is. The purification takes place in the heart, and thus the arteries, after the purification from the lungs, the pure blood is taken and it is supplied to the rest of the body parts for a normal functioning of a body. Okay, next will be the capillaries. Of course, when you talk about the veins are very thin walled, and they do have valves. And when you talk about the capillaries, what are these capillaries are? These capillaries are nothing but the blood vessels, the tiny narrow blood vessels which will connect both the arteries and the veins together. As a result, it helps in the exchange of the micronutrients, the oxygen, the water, the CO2 between the cells and between your blood. So that forms a good bridge. This capillaries forms a good bridge between the blood and the cells. Okay, fine. So the next one will be the heart, right? So when you talk about the heart, of course, as the picture says, heart is the important organ. The first one will be the brain. Brain is the king of a body. Next will be the heart. So the brain and the heart together will coordinate for any type of a functioning, right? So when you take about the heart, you must know what is the heart is. So the heart is, as you all know, it is a muscular organ. And when you talk about this muscular organ, you have to talk about the chambers, the divisions. It has 4 chambers, 2 auricles and 2 ventricles. Fine. So what is the size of the heart? Normally, the size of the heart is just the size of your fist. Just the size of your fist. So when you talk about the location, where it is located? So the heart is located between the lungs, in the thoracic cavity. In the thoracic cavities, okay. So this is the location of the lungs, location of the heart. So the heart is located between the lungs in the thoracic cavity. Okay, so when you talk about the heart has three different layers. The heart has the three different layers. What are those layers are? The first one will be the epicardium. The second one will be the myocardium. The third one will be the endocardium. What is this epicardium is? You can see in the picture itself, right? You can see in the picture this epicardium, right? The next one you can see here, it is the heart of the mammals, birds, amphibians, the reptiles and fishes. You're going to see about what are the different types of the heart, what are the different chambers which is present in all these organisms. So first one, in mammals, if you see, okay, in mammals and birds, the heart has 4 chambers. If you can see the mammals here, I have already quoted in the picture, it is seen as a 4-chambered. Okay, the right and the left sides of the heart is separated by the septum here. Septum means divisions. It is divided by the septums. So the next one is it prevents. What does this does? The main thing is that it prevents the mixing of the blood. That is mixing of what? The oxygenated and deoxygenated. Okay, that is both the blood must not mix together. Once the heart receives the impure blood, it goes into the lungs for purification, and after it purifies, the blood which is rich in oxygen is sent, okay, and from there it channelizes and goes from the aorta to the other parts of the body. This is the basic function of the heart. This is the basic function of the heart. So what happens here is that this prevents the mixing of the oxygenated and the deoxygenated blood. And also it supplies the oxygen. One more function is that it maintains the body temperature. Okay, it maintains the body temperature, or the hemostasis they say. Maintaining of the body temperature, that is, supposing if it is very cold outside, your body will maintain the temperature. So this heart only regulates the temperature, right? So supposing if it is very hot, accordingly your body is also adapted. Okay, when you talk about the heart in the amphibians and in the reptiles, what are reptiles? Crocodiles, snakes and other. They have 3-chambered. When you talk about in amphibians and reptiles, it is only 3-chambered. Here it is. Okay, so it is amphibians. They have 3-chambered. The body temperature will be the same, okay, as the temperature of the surroundings. That is, accordingly, when the temperature is hot, the body will be hot. The temperature is cold, the body will be so hot, warm-blooded as well as the cold-blooded. According to the temperature, it can fluctuate. Their body temperature is as the same as that of the surroundings of the environment. And of course, the last one will be the fishes. When you talk about the fishes, they have only 2 chambers here. That you just see in the first picture here. They have only 2 chambers with the gills present. Okay. So what happens here? How the circulatory system works in fishes, I'll just brief up to you. What happens exactly here? The water, okay, the water enters inside the mouth and passes through the gills. Yes, as you know, okay. Since the fishes is already in the water will enter in the mouth and it will pass inside the gills. So as you know, the gills are what? What are gills are? The gills are rich in the blood. The gills are, they are very much rich in blood. Okay, so this gills will absorb the water. The gills will absorb the water and they will move into the bloodstream. Once they absorb the water will move into the bloodstream. So fishes, the fish heart, what does it does? It pumps the blood and supplies oxygen throughout the body. So I repeat again, the heart of the fish pumps the blood to supply oxygen throughout the body parts. So this is the mechanism of the circulatory process in fishes. Okay. Okay, the next slide will be transport in plants. How the transportation in the plants takes place. So in plants, when you take the transportation of the materials like the food materials, minerals, takes place through the conducting tissues called the xylem and the phylum. There are two different types of conducting tissues. So what is conducting tissue? Before that, you must know what is a conducting tissue. Normally, conducting tissues are nothing but it is a group of cells, okay, which is seen in the plant. It is a group of cells which is really responsible for transporting the food materials and water to the different part of the plants. So that is called as a conducting tissue. When you talk about the conducting tissue will be the xylem and the phloem. The conducting tissue will be the xylem and the phloem. I repeat again, what is the conducting tissue? The conducting tissue is nothing but it is a group of cells, okay, that is, it is responsible for transporting the food materials and the water to the different parts of the plant, and that is called as what? That is called as the conducting tissues. So now let's talk about of what is the xylem and a phloem is. As you can see in this picture, right, as you see in the xylem are nothing but the plant tissue. They are nothing but the plant tissue. The xylems are the nothing but the plant tissue. They give the water and minerals. They give the water and minerals to the plant from the root. That is, when you pour the water in the ground, right, you pour the water. As soon as you plant a tree or a sapling, not a tree, you can't, it's a small sapling, okay. When you plant a sapling, what happens? You take care by adding nourishment, that is like water or any type of thing, okay. When you pour the water, the roots will absorb the water, right. Now this water, the water consists of what? It consists of a lot of molecules, and also the underground stem the underground part has many minerals in it. So the water and minerals is taken to the plant by the xylem through the roots. That I want to make here clear. Okay, so that is the main function of xylem, and also it has the water conducting cells. Water conducting, which means it channelizes, it makes the water to get inside, and that is called as the tracheal elements. Tracheary elements, that is called as the tracheary elements. The next one will be the phloem. Now normally when you talk about this phloem is seen in the stems and also in the leaves. It is seen in the stem and also in the leaves. So what does it helps? What is the function? What does it helps? It helps to transport the food. Where is the food seen in the plants? In the leaves. Because we already studied about the stomatal opening. What does the stomatal opening consist of, and what are the leaves consist of? It consists of the chlorophyll. What is chlorophyll needed for the preparation, for the helps in the process of photosynthesis? What is photosynthesis? Making the plants preparing its own food, and they are termed as autotrophs. Already we learnt in the earlier class. Okay, so here also this phylum, what happens? It helps to transport the food, especially from the leaf region to the other parts. That is the main function of the phloem. And also it gives a mechanical stability to the plant. It gives the support. How the vertebral column of our body makes us to sit, stand. Okay, we do all the postures because of the vertebral column. If not, all of us will be like in a mollusk form, just like how the mollusca, just like how the jellyfishes are. But we are vertebrates, which we have a firm spinal cord. Just like that. What does the main function of the spinal cord? It gives a stability to the body. You and I can stand because of the spinal cord. Likewise, the same is applied in terms of plants also. This phloem helps to give the mechanical support to the plant and also stability to the plant. That is the main function of the phloem. So these are the transportation. This is how the transportation of water and minerals takes place in plants. It takes place in the form of conducting tissues. The conducting tissues are nothing but the xylem and the phloem. Okay, the next slide. The next slide will be the excretory system. Okay, so what is excretion is? Sending the waste product or eliminating. What is eliminating is making them to go out, sending out of the body. Eliminating the waste product from your body outside. That process is called as the excretory system. Of course, when you talk about the excretion, especially in unicellular, the unicellular organisms, can you name a unicellular organism? Yes, it is amoeba. Amoeba is a single cell organism. So the waste products are removed by the process of diffusion. Okay, by the process of diffusion. So what happens exactly? When you talk about in amoeba, the cellular waste, I can tell you, in amoeba, the cellular waste, what are the cellular waste? Okay, the excess water, ammonia, all these are present. Okay, this excess of water, ammonia, they are all excreted by the process of exocytosis. Exocytosis. Exo means outside, endo means inside. There is one more process called endocytosis, but I am going to tell you only about the exocytosis in unicellular. What is exocytosis? Exocytosis is nothing but outside. Okay, so it is a process by which the waste is expelled out. Okay, so in amoeba, you can find there are a number of vesicles, right? The number of vacuoles. Now these vacuoles, they fuse with the plasma membrane. Once they fuse with the plasma membrane, they release that unwanted content, the undigested or the waste content outside the body, and that process is called as the exocytosis. That process is called as the exocytosis. The next one, the multicellular organisms, the human beings and all that, we have a proper specialized organ. If I want to tell you the proper specialized organ, the kidneys. The kidneys are the excretory organs. The kidneys, the urethra, the urinary bladder, all these are the associated organs which helps to expel the waste part from the body. Okay. So the next one. So the next slide. So the first one will be the glomerular filtration, as I already told you. Okay, what is this glomerular filtration? So this glomerular filtration will be the first formation of the urine, first step in the urine formation. In this process, what happens? The excess fluids or the water, the excess fluids and the waste products from the kidney are filtered. They are filtered out, okay, of the blood into the collecting tubule, the urine collecting tubule, and it is eliminated of the body. The amount of the filtrate, that is what is the quantity of the urine or the quantity of the liquid, it depends upon how your kidney produces every minute, and this is known as the glomerular filtration rate. The glomerular filtration rate, it is otherwise called as the GTR. This is also one of the important question, one of the very important question asked in board exams. Okay, the next one will be the tubular reabsorption. The next stage will be the tubular reabsorption. So when you talk about the tubular reabsorption, it is nothing but the absorption of ions, the molecules, the ions and the molecules. What are the ions and molecules? I can say the sodium, the glucose, the ions, the amino acids and water. All these are reabsorbed. That is, it is the absorption of ions and the minerals, such as the water, the amino acids, the glucose, and all this involves a passive absorption. A passive absorption. So like when you talk about the sodium ions, they are absorbed in the process, that is in the active process. It is absorbed in the active process, that is water involves the passive absorption, whereas the glucose, the sodium ions are taken in active process. So the next one will be the glomerulus. So when you talk about the glomerulus filters the blood. The next part will be the proximal convoluted tubules. What are these proximal convoluted tubules? Now they reabsorb the water, the micronutrients, etc. And what do they remove? They remove the toxins outside the body, from the body, right? They remove the toxins by maintaining the balanced, by maintaining the pH. They maintain the pH, okay? And also the main function is the pH of the body fluids by secreting potassium. How do they maintain? By secreting the potassium. Not only potassium, hydrogen, ammonia to filter, and therefore it helps in reabsorption. Reabsorption of biocarbonates and from the filtrate. That is, it helps in the reabsorption of the biocarbonates from where? From the filtrate part. It helps from the filtrate part. The next one, the descending. I told you ascending, descending, especially in the in the Helms loop. I told you, no, the ascending and the descending part. There I told you. So the descending, what does it do? It filtrates. What does it filtrates? It filtrates the permeability of water. The Helen's loop, the descending loop of Helen is very permeable to water, and therefore it filtrates, okay, the impermeable electrolytes. The impermeable electrolytes. When you talk about the ascending loop of Helen, what is it? It is impermeable to water and also permeable to electrolytes. I repeat again, what is ascending loop of Helen? It is impermeable to what? To the water, and permeable to what? To the electrolytes. So the filtrate, what happens here? The filtrate gets diluted. Now here the filtrate gets nicely diluted, and what happens? Due to what does it filtrate? Due to the movement of the electrolytes. Only because of the movement of electrolytes from the filtrate, and where it enters to the medullary fluid. Okay, it reaches to filter to the medullary fluid. The next one will be the distal convoluted tubules. The distal convoluted tubules. What does this allows? It allows a reabsorption of water. The distal convoluted tube, what happens is it helps in the reabsorption of water and sodium ions. The reabsorption of water and sodium ions. It also helps to maintain the pH. Okay, the pH is maintained by secreting and reabsorption like the proximal convoluted tube, like the waters, ions, the nutrients and all that. So this is about the finally what happens? The collecting duct. It will collect the urine, and once the urine is it's a temporary place in the collecting duct, and finally the process will be maturation. What is maturation? Is expelling the urine outside from the urinary bladder, expelling the urine outside the body, and that is called as the maturation. Okay, so this is the exact and the complete process of the human excretory system. So the next one will be, the next slide will be the excretion in plants. Of course, as you already know, the excretion in the plants, the waste, the unwanted water, it is taken out by the stomata, by the stomatal opening. Through what? Through the process of transpiration. The sunlight absorbs the water, so thus the loss of water is taken. So when the stomatal opening of the stomata, when the stomatal is open, the excess of water, the unwanted water is sent out through the stomatal opening, and gases are observed. Okay, the gases are, especially what gas is observed? The CO2. Oxygen is sent outside and the CO2 is absorbed inside through the cells. So this is the excretion which normally takes place in plants. Immediately must think excretion takes place only through the cells, especially through the stomatal opening. That you must, don't forget that. I mean, humans, we say it is urinary bladder, it is the nephron, it is the kidneys, the urethra, all that. But in plants, the waste gases are removed through the cells, especially through the stomatal opening. Okay, so it takes in the carbon dioxide and leaves out the oxygen. Okay, the next slide. Okay, I think with this we are completing the chapter, the first chapter in NCERT syllabus, in standard NCERT syllabus, the life processes. Hope you all understood the session. I think the session was very useful to you all. Okay, so if you like this video, please share the video, subscribe to our channel to X Gion, and don't forget to hit the thumbs up button there. Meet you all in the next video with a new chapter. Okay, so until then, take care and enjoy learning. Thank you, children.